Listen, just one more thing.
Hello there. Welcome to my review of episode 4 of season 5 of Columbo, A Matter of Honour. First broadcast on the 1st of February 1976 on NBC. It was written by Brad Radnitz. Radnitz was born on October the 22nd, 1930 in New York. He served with the US Army between 1952 and 1954, after graduating from Northwestern University. He began his screenwriting career in sitcoms, writing for The Lucy Show and McHale's Navy in 1966, but would also later write for dramas such as Mission Impossible and Ironside, as well as this episode of Columbo. His screenwriting career lasted for nearly 30 years, his last projects being episodes of MacGyver and Silk Stockings. He also served as the president of the Writers Guild of America West from 1995 to 1997. He is 91. The episode is directed by returning director Ted Post. The episode begins with a man having a nightmare about a bullfight gone wrong. He wakes and says something in Spanish to a doctor, who answers in Spanish, before going back to sleep. The man is Kuro Rangel, played by A. Martinez. Martinez was born Adolfo LaRue Martinez III on the 27th of September 1948 in California. One of his childhood nicknames was A, and he would eventually adopt this nickname professionally. His heritage includes Mexican and Native American, leading to him often being cast as these nationalities. He decided to study acting at UCLA, but began his career at 12 as a singer and played semi-professional baseball for 5 seasons. His acting career began in 1968 in the film The Young Animals, and worked steadily in small film and television roles for the next few decades, including his Columbo appearance, before being cast in the daytime soap Santa Barbara, which he would appear in 1,493 episodes of, and in 39 episodes of LA Law, making him a familiar face on television. He also appeared in the soap General Hospital, and more recently in the TV series Longmire as Jacob Nighthorse, and the soap Days of Our Lives. He continues to act to this day, and his latest film is the Michael Bay film Ambulance. He is 73. The doctor answers a ringing phone, and the man on the other end of the line inquires about Kuro in English. He is Luis Montoya, played by Ricardo Montalban. Montalban was born on the 25th of November 1920 in Mexico City. In 1940 he moved to Los Angeles to live with his brother, before both men moved to New York, where Montalban got a small role in Her Cardboard Lover. He appeared in several short films before returning to Mexico and becoming a star of Mexican cinema, including the film Santa, which a section of is used in this episode as home movie footage of Montoya in his younger days. Montalban was then sought out by MGM to play a bullfighter opposite Esther Williams in Fiesta, and based on the success of that, he was put under a long-term contract. He would appear twice more with Williams, as well as appearing in films with Frank Sinatra, June Allyson, and Jane Powell, amongst others. He would then make the move into B pictures and appearing on Broadway, as the larger film roles began to get sparse. He would go on to appear in dozens of film and television roles over his long career, including this episode of Columbo. In 1970, he co-founded an organization to tackle some of the unfair stereotyping associated with Mexican and Latino characters in film and television, and campaigned to make sure actors of other races were not cast in roles of Mexican and Latino characters. Some of his more notable roles came later in life, playing Mr. Rourke in Fantasy Island in the late 70s and early 80s, and as Khan in Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, reprising a role he played in the 1966 series to great acclaim. It was alleged he wore a false chest piece to appear in good shape, but the truth is the costume was designed to show off his natural impressive physique, as he had a vigorous training regime even into his 60s. Due to an onset back injury which aggravated a pre-existing condition in the 50s, he suffered considerable pain throughout his life and had to undergo serious surgery in the early 90s, which reduced his mobility. He continued to voice act and occasionally appeared in live action when the role permitted. He continued to work right up until his death in 2009. He was 88. Montoya is watching footage of himself bullfighting as a younger man. It's revealed that Kuro was gored by one of his bulls. One of Montoya's servants enters and inquires about Kuro and praises Montoya's bravery for stepping in and saving him. Montoya tells him to give most of the considerable number of staff the rest of the day off. One man, Miguel, stays behind, and Montoya tells him some cows have got loose and asks him to go round them up.
To keep your company. Good mezcal, senor.
Giving him a bottle of mezcal for company. Montoya then goes to see Kuro's father, Hector, who has decided to quit, and Montoya fails to dissuade him. Montoya then says he is going to kill the bull that gored Kuro in the bull ring, and wants Hector to help. Hector reluctantly agrees and they enter the bull ring. While Hector's back is turned, Montoya shoots him with a tranquilizer dart, and he begs for Montoya's help as Montoya releases the bull, which kills Hector. We cut to Columbo, who bumps his car into the back of a Mexican's car, which causes a scene as the driver pretends to be very injured and demands money in Spanish from a largely clueless Columbo. The police arrive and one of them takes Columbo's badge as he tries to prevent his car from being towed. More police turn up and escort Columbo to Commandant Sanchez, played by Pedro Armendariz Jr. Armendariz Jr. was a Mexican character actor who notably is the only actor to share appearances in the James Bond franchise with his father, Armendariz Sr. appearing as Kerim Bey in From Russia with Love shortly before his death, and Armendariz Jr. appearing as President Hector Lopez in License to Kill. He would also appear in Amistad, The Mask of Zorro, and Once Upon a Time in Mexico, amongst many other film and television roles. He died on December 26, 2011. He was 71. Sanchez uses the crash as an excuse to keep Columbo around, having heard about his exploits on his cruise to Mexico in troubled waters. As Sanchez is inviting Columbo to dinner, he gets the call about the apparent accident and invites Columbo along, with the promise to speed up the paperwork if Columbo comes and takes a look. At Montoya's ranch, Montoya explains the accident Kuro had, and how Hector must have been trying to avenge his son, claiming that he had left the ranch for San Diego when it all happened. Columbo wants to know how much the bull is worth, and when he finds out, he's surprised Hector would try to destroy such a valuable animal. Montoya says he was suffering with grief. Columbo finds out Montoya's car was washed and waxed at midday on the day of Hector's death, then expects the body and then the bull. In this episode, Columbo is fascinatingly out of his depth, and has to learn about bullfighting as he goes, asking lots of questions which have reasonable answers and true answers. It's unusual to see him like this, as his assumptions are usually correct. It's also interesting to see how quick a learner he is. Over dinner with Sanchez, Columbo questions whether Hector could have been suicidal, or whether it could have been homicide, and Montoya could have used the bull as a murder weapon. Columbo says he didn't believe Montoya's reason for Hector being in the ring. We've never seen Columbo think aloud like this before. He's questioning Sanchez as a proxy for Montoya, and it's a real peek behind the curtain of his methods. Columbo also wonders why Montoya took his everyday car to the meeting rather than ask Hector to drive his expensive classic car. He asks Sanchez not to close the case, and Sanchez asks him to investigate. Columbo agrees and theorizes possible motives.
Hector was keeping his books. Maybe Hector was stealing from him. Maybe it had something to do with his daughter and Curo. They were attracted to one another. I don't know.
But tells Sanchez they have to start with the small things. Maybe this is giving too much away, but I really like how we get to see Columbo explain some of his methods here. It's been something of a mystery up until now, and while it's easy to speculate on his methods, this is the first time he's admitting to them. It's what sets Columbo apart from other fictional detectives like Sherlock Holmes or Hercule Poirot, who go to great lengths to explain their methods, while being the only people capable enough to use them. Columbo uses a mix of both their methods, of meticulous attention to the smallest detail and to understanding the psychology of people and human nature. But because he usually lacks a sidekick, we never hear him express any of these methods. Montoya's daughter arrives at the ranch, and Montoya greets her, suggesting that one of Columbo's theories might have been correct. Montoya notices Columbo wandering around the ranch, but pays no attention to it. Columbo speaks to Miguel and finds out what he was doing on the day Hector was killed. While clearing out Hector's locker, Miguel discovers his suitcase is already packed, which Columbo and Miguel find curious. He's also confused as to why there is a fragment of a lance used for herding in the bull ring. Montoya comes in and Columbo questions him about how he damaged his leg, which led to his retirement, and he explains he was injured in the bull ring, protecting a young matador who froze in fear. In an exchange dripping with subtext, Columbo asks if he can come back, and he's fascinated by what's going on, but has a lot to learn, much to the barely disguised annoyance of Montoya. Columbo has the medical report, which Sanchez translates, and it's been noticed that there was a needle mark. Columbo says Sanchez should order a full autopsy. He also questions whether it rained at the ranch, as Hector would not have fought a bull in the rain. Columbo goes to the hospital to speak to Curo, and he's being well looked after by Montoya's daughter. Columbo asks about Curo's fight with a bull. He finds out that while trying to stop the bull, which had broken loose, Curo was knocked unconscious, and Hector dragged him out of the ring while Montoya distracted the bull, but doesn't know if his father had his lance with him at the time. He also can't explain why Hector had his bag packed, as he didn't go anywhere, and so he would not be leaving unless he had been fired or quit. Columbo may have found another possible motive. At the police station, Columbo is reading a book on the art of bullfighting when he's interrupted by Sanchez, who says his car has been released. Sanchez explains bulls are attracted to the movement of the cape, dispelling a myth about the colour red in 1976 that persists to this day. Columbo says he has a motive, but that no one would believe him. Columbo goes back to the ranch and Montoya is furious Hector is being autopsied. Columbo explains they suspect Hector may have been tranquilized and wants to see any records of tranquilizer used. Montoya agrees, and Columbo also wants to see any dart guns they use. While looking through the records, he observes the bookkeeping Hector says he was working on had already been completed days earlier. He also asks who packed Hector's bags. Montoya denies knowing anything. Columbo suggests that he's lying, and Montoya kicks him out. Columbo says,
"Well, someday somebody's going to come to your door. Commandant Sanchez, maybe, somebody else, but somebody."
Columbo urges Sanchez to keep looking as he knows something is up, and Montoya is involved, but he can't find it. He then happens to notice Sanchez's children pour water on the cape as they pretend to bullfight, to prevent it from blowing in the wind, and Columbo finds his missing piece. He goes to see Kuro, who is on his way to fight the bull. Columbo tells him he's not fit enough, and it was Montoya who killed his father. Columbo is still not certain why, and asks for Kuro's help. He returns to Montoya's ranch with Sanchez, and explains to Montoya what he thinks happened to Hector. While there, Montoya is informed that Kuro has gone to fight the bull. He goes to stop Kuro, but as he convinces him, the bull is released. Kuro hides from the bull behind a board, but Montoya freezes. Eventually, ranch hands spring out from the other boards and distract the bull, and Columbo has his motive. Montoya killed Hector because Hector had seen him freeze when they rescued Kuro. His ego would not let anyone know about his apparent cowardice. It really was as petty as that. And Columbo knew because there were no water stains on the cape when Hector was killed, and there should have been as there were high winds at that time. Another strong episode here, with a lot going for it. The greater depth into how Columbo works is fantastic to see, yet doesn't give too much away as to explain it all. There's an element of mystery as the motive is slowly revealed. We get to see Columbo working on a subject he knows nothing about, and we see his distaste for blood sport without it ever getting preachy.
I don't think I would enjoy watching a man kill an animal like that, as big and as mean as he is.
The performances are all great. There isn't a Mexican stereotype in sight, and the local cop isn't a buffoon, which is an all too common trope in TV detective shows. It's not perfect though. I would have liked to have seen Montoya's daughter more developed as a character, as she's barely in it, and it would have been nice to see a little more of Montoya's ego coming through. This is one case where show, don't tell would have worked better. The pacing is very good, but it is another 70-minute episode, which always tends to get the pacing right. Even so, the plot itself is a little thin. It's odd that there isn't too much wrong with the episode, and yet I don't enjoy it as much as I perhaps should. I think Ricardo Montalban is a little underused and doesn't really get the chance to do much acting, so the episode feels somewhat underwhelming or unsatisfactory. For that reason, it's another 3 out of 5 for me, but I could have easily given this a 4 out of 5. Thank you. Goodbye.